Good afternoon, good lunch, or good morning, depending on what part of the country you're in today. This is Steve Holzer, the product evangelist for BIMobject. Welcome to BIMobject Talks. I have with me colleague Don Brockman. He'll be monitoring the chat channel as we move through the talk today. I'm going to wait just a couple more minutes. We still have, looks like quite a few people connecting in, so hang on just another 30 seconds or a minute. Stand by and we'll get started. Welcome again to those of you that just joined and those that already heard this, part of the repetition, but this is Steve Holzer, product evangelist for BIMobject. Depending on where you are, it's either afternoon or lunchtime or good morning, as it is here at our U.S. headquarters in Burbank, where we're presenting the webinar from today. My colleague Don Brockman is be monitoring the chat channel, so as we're going through the webinar, feel free to ask any questions that you might have in the chat pane. Just type them in, and Don will be monitoring if there's anything crucial that comes up, or at the end, we'll also have a question and answer period for anyone that has items they want us to look at. And if we don't get through all those today, I will be responding to each of them individually, anything that remains at the end. As well, this webinar is going to be recorded and it'll be available for all attendees after the fact. So something I want to keep in mind today, just on top of mind, is throughout our discussion, ask yourself as a building product manufacturer, how often do your distributors or you send an invoice to or receive a check from an architect or engineer that specified your products? How often is that where you actually achieve revenue goals? Just something to consider. That being said, the overview today is an overview. It's an overview of where we were last year as BIMobject. All of you on the call were brought into the BIMobject family of content, primarily through a transition of us absorbing the SEEK content. Approximately 300 building product manufacturers joined up with approximately 700 other global building product manufacturers that were already on the BIMobject platform. So we're going to go over not just last year, but also what we see as major shifts in the industry going forward. To be relevant today, we have to anticipate tomorrow to stay in business. And what I want to kind of go over you at a high level today, and I'm going to do my best to refrain from diving deep into individual topics only because there are so many big areas. I want to give you just an overview of the solutions, the tools that we provide you to be successful in the marketplace. We provide a total cloud platform of tools that enables your content, your true digital objects and products to perform throughout building programming and design, into engineering, procurement, purchasing, cost definition. Cost definition is that's a near and dear to my heart, in that a number of years ago, as a member of the National Institute of Building Sciences, developing our national BIM standard, we really saw that we need to eliminate the term estimating, as that just means it needs to be done again. and replace it largely with cost definition, because technology allows us to do that today. We can define costs in the process. Where your products engage the construction and the field, the assembly of it, into even the operation of the building, and even then into renovation and reclamation, the full building life cycle. So we want to show how we leverage your content from day one, from the initial building programming all the way through the complete building life cycle, to continue to keep your products and your offerings relevant. A little backwards view: in January 1st of 2017, there were 259,000 registered BIMobject users worldwide. That number doubled during 2017. And while we're here, I want to emphasize registered users on our platform are not required to pay, nor is there any limit to the downloads, the amount of time, any access to any information on our portal. So in order to be able to download your content, your objects, a user does have to be registered. They are not required to be registered to simply browse. Currently, we have over 730,000 users, registered users, and those are architects, consisting of architects, engineers, contractors, manufacturers, owners, and facility managers. Another thing that's somewhat unique in the shift to the BIMobject platform is we're free and neutral to all BIM or CAD modeling software. We have file types of any type that you, the manufacturer, choose to want to offer to your audience through our global platform. So why is this all important? Why does it matter? Well, a little background, a little overview, I guess, and even forward view to the industry. By 2030, which is really not that far away, it's only 12 years, I am shocked to say almost, construction output will grow by 85% to 15.5 trillion annually worldwide. We're right now at about 9%, so it's not quite doubling, but certainly a huge amount of growth. And of that, China, US, and India alone globally will account for well over half of all that growth. One of the big shifts that actually kind of blew me away was a study that showed that by 2050, we're going to need 3 billion homes. Now, that being said, I think we're going to see a lot of housing transition from what we know as a single family detached, especially here in the US, to a whole different type of multifamily and commercial structures, such as what we've seen in major metropolitan urban areas. I'm here in LA, and we're seeing a number of different types of buildings and requirements for housing alone, with mixed use and live, work, play, things like that. Another challenge that we have is, as an industry, we got to deal with a huge amount of the solid waste and CO2 emissions. They're an issue, whether we want to admit it or not. And waste. Well, there's a lot of ways to define waste, but just in content alone, we have 534 million tons in 2014, according to the APA study from the US construction industry alone. What causes a lot of this? Well, in some ways, every building is a prototype. Some buildings, some large organizations that have repetitive structures often have 1, 2, 3 building types they might build all over the country. But every time, every one of those is still replaced on a unique site, sited uniquely, dealing with unique infrastructure challenges, unique site requirements, unique foundational challenges. So what's the answer to a lot of these? It's going to be the digitalization of the built environment. It's really the only way that we can meet the demands that are going to be upon us to produce within the industry, as well as reduce the carbon risk and costs. According to the Boston Consulting Group, a full digitalization of the industry is going to occur over the next 10 years. And that was in March of 2016. So we're 2 years past that. It's down to 8 years at this point, and the clock is ticking. Every process, every work, every model of business is going to be challenged. So what's digitalization? What does that really mean? It's going to be the use or leverage of digital technologies to change a business model. That's a key element. So many of these business models are going to be changed, not just change the way we're shuffling the same information. It's going to provide new revenue and value producing opportunities. And that's one of the things I want to give you an overview on today is how BIMobject, we're looking to provide enabling technologies that's going to leverage your current digital content into the process in a much deeper way of engagement than it has in the past. So the whole thing is in the process of moving to a digital business. We've all seen the hockey sticks this day and age, Bitcoin, the stock market, and many other things. This is a brief hockey stick of our industry to a large degree. And while it's not highly exact, some of the keys are here. I mean, we were using drafting boards up into the 70s. So this demonstrates the rapid growth and what's going to happen in terms of becoming science. I mean, essentially, our industry is going to become building science. It already has in some areas. But as late as 2008, BIM really just became somewhat known as BIM. And keep in mind that just before that, the iPhone was introduced. How many of us can imagine almost the world without a smartphone? So we're in rapid change, rapid growth in the building industry technology arena, and how are you going to be able to address that and remain relevant and part of it? We see that it's going to redraw the limits of industries. I mean, they're going to get different. They're going to overlap. They're going to change. But actually, if we're doing our homework and understanding what's going on, we should be able to expand our own part of it. One place that expansion can occur is building information modeling was just that initially, modeling. I've actually seen this acronym with a small superscript 2 next to it, BIM squared, if you would, to emulate this double phrase. Building information modeling can also be construed as, and as it evolves, into building information management. We're going to be using tools to manage the information of a building, which is really where the critical core is. There's numerous studies that have shown that 90% of the total dollars spent of that 9 trillion annually now is after occupancy, in renovation, in operation, in repairs, in maintenance. Something I, throughout my time, have used to help people understand our industry is that really it's a communication platform. I mean, that's what everything that we do, all actors in this built environment, we communicate. So that's to say that a building owner, whether it be a restaurant or a hospital or a school or a homeowner, they have requirements, they have needs that they need for a facility. They communicate that to a designer, architect. Now, many times that's becoming a construction manager through some of the newer evolutions of our industry. From there, that an engineer gets engaged and or procurement or purchasing. But in each of those cases, largely it was maybe verbally communicated from the owner to the designer. The designer then began using drawings back in the 50s. Drawings were the tool of communication to communicate to the engineer and to actually the procurement and construction companies what to build. And again, those are all interpretations. So the construction manager may create contracts that are, again, an interpretation of the drawings to the steel fabricator, to the bricklayer, to every mechanical contractor, to communicate to them what they're each doing respectively. That goes out to the field. And again, those same drawings are used to communicate how all this, once it's bought, how does it go together? And in the end, we end up with a new manufacturing plant or school or hospital, with the goal being that when that owner accepts that facility, that back in the day, there was a marketing campaign that used the tagline, "The best surprise is no surprise." That's what we're attempting to accomplish with the communication, with the foundation of communication, is that owner can walk into that building and it's exactly what they thought they were buying. So we've evolved from, a lot of people used to say CAD to BIM, but we really evolved from blueprints to BIM. So essentially blueprints were the drawings used to communicate, and CAD was the first electronic version, but simply all we were saving were erasers and paper, and probably not even paper because it got printed so many times, but all we did was have a different way of transmitting that information. It's still paper-based. From there, CAD, we moved to 3D CAD, which was just geometric modeling in and of itself. So it just was representation showing the physical objects or physical boundaries. To move into now where we're into building information modeling, which is that same geometry, but it has values, it has weights, it has, in the case of a valve, it has certain flows. In case of a window, it might have a U value, and in the case of a door or wallboard, it may have an STC ratings. These are all critically important to the overall products. So we've gone from visualization of just having to imagine what that building is going to look like in 2D CAD. In the 3D CAD, we got to kind of see somewhat renderings, if you would. We can look and see from a three-dimensional perspective, but it not in real time. To BIM, where we can actually walk through and see the buildings, and that's truly three-dimensional aspects, and even using other technologies for holograms and so forth. So what we've got now is in BIMobject, we believe we have a great solution to disrupt. We're going to be using the internet as a platform for all manufacturers to make their building products available to designers, engineers, constructors, all of the actors, where they fit together essentially like digital pieces of Lego. We're going to give you the ability to, not just you, but the whole ecosystem of the built environment, to design, connect, and supply through a single source. I got this question in reflecting here, and last year, Steve here was the recipient of all of the questions that came in early in the transition from Seek, when BIMobject absorbed the Seek library. I answered all the questions, and the number one question I had is, what happened to the generic content? Where did it go? Why don't we have it? Why should I design using manufacturer-specific BIM objects? And I was kind of amazed in this day and age that we're getting such a question in that with technology, really, I mean, have you ever seen a building that got cooled with a generic air handler? It doesn't happen. So that is to say, generic objects were simply plugs that forced the decision to be made later in the process. And if there's anything that BIM does, it allows us to make decisions at the appropriate time in the process. Digitalization is what allows that process to change. How do we do that? Well, BIMobject, our product cloud, we have just strictly branded content available on our product cloud. It's all parametric and configurable. That is to say that a single series of a window might have 10 or 12 sizes. We also, being a global content platform, we support 22 languages. That's up to you, the manufacturer, to decide any of those languages you can populate and fill, depending on who you want to address. So there's one central place to locate all of these digital products and materials. On the product platform, this is our actual search page. And this is direct from the BIMobject.com platform. It allows functioning searches, filtering searches. On the left, you can see there's a number of ways, depending on contextually, once you've chosen maybe a brand or a certain product type, it'll open up different filters for you to select. Once you select an item, As you'll see, there's a number of other features available for you to populate. And this is another one. I get calls. I had 2 calls this morning already. I get calls daily because my number happens to be the one published for the US office, asking me for pricing or questions about products. This is a fairly new feature, the business matching. About a year ago, we implemented it. And the building product, all of you as building product manufacturers have the ability to populate this area where the big red arrow is pointing to include your local representative, your local sales rep. It could be a technical rep. And when I say local, it's up to you to decide what's local. Maybe you only have one for the US, but each of these you're able to define on your own. And this is incredibly important because that allows your people that your potential customers to contact directly with your reps. In the BIMobject platform, you can actually have this defined down to the zip code level. Not everyone chooses that, and everyone has a different way of doing it. Our system will support any way that you want to allocate territories, however you want to do it, regions, for your own way of doing business. But anyway, it's a really important aspect. A couple other things. Once you've clicked on this actual product page, the actual building product manufacturer is available at the top in addition to the local reps, and then the download buttons are there, along with many of these or other information that you're able to populate and manage through the content management system yourselves, which is our cloud admin for product pages. Everyone has the capability of assigning product page admins, any sort of rights that you want to give your own people, maybe your marketing department for descriptions, other technical folks for updating properties and property sets that apply to all of your products. And it's all fully manageable, managed by you, as well as even in, this is where also all of the multiple language formats are managed. So a BIM object is not just a 3D, not just fixed or parametric geometry, not just a piece that is a Lego piece in visually. There's also all the metadata, the catalog data, the property, the certifications. Along with our property sets, you're able to manage all of the, for instance, Kobe data that you can actually have in property sets that are dynamically able to be populated in terms of any standards that you wish to include in your properties that are important. Those are all available, and they are not necessarily embedded in the file. In this day and age, we're still downloading files. They can be accessed later, largely through our BIMobject apps. BIMobject apps are the Revit app for BIMobject is the first or second most downloaded app on the Autodesk Exchange platform and has been for many years. There's also apps available in SketchUp, ArchiCAD, Vectorworks, AutoCAD. I've talked to many users through the transition who might call with early days of questions of how to access this or that. And I said, do you have the app? And once they installed the app, it truly changed their workflow because they did not have to leave or go outside of their modeling software in order to access or download your content and build it into the model. If they selected one of your widgets off of your BIMobject product page, it immediately was available to them to place at the end of their cursor within the modeling application. As well, this is where later on they're able to update, as you say, update properties. You can see they can have the IFC exports. There's all kinds of other functionality, as well as within those toolbars, we do have featured manufacturer capabilities for you to purchase advertising for if that's something that you're interested in. So we really push for real data connected to real content. This is the only way that we can address what the industry is demanding today. And some of what they're demanding is more information about the products. It leads to better decisions. They want to solve the problem in the BIM model, not the construction site. It's much more effective to manage it in a digital environment. Much less of a problem, much fewer people, many fewer people are involved. You're also able to reduce the risk, reduce the cost, reduce the carbon with an early engagement of the supply chain. So the supply chain is getting involved much earlier now with this shift in the industry than it used to be. As I mentioned earlier, the BIM allows us to build it twice, build it right. So we're seeing people actually digitally construct a building before it ever gets physically constructed. One thing I noticed, as I mentioned, I was part of the NBIMS-US version 3 that got developed a few years ago with the Building Smart Alliance, and we identified as vice chair of the market education team, we saw the greatest impediment to BIM utilization and implementation was there wasn't any great places for real digital content of actual building products. Again, it was everybody was trying to use generic plugs. So we have to be able to create that digital twin up front. It has to be able to be modeled. Some of the aspects that we need for that to happen is, I mean, we have guys that are creating these digital twins, and they're doing an energy utilization analysis. They're doing sun studies. They're doing water and waste flows. They're doing computational fluid design in emulating how the airflows are happening within a given room with real products. But they have to have the real diffusers. They have to have the real products to do what ifs and manage all of these variables to get an accurate production or virtualization of the building that's going to eventually be constructed. So we're creating the mistakes and problems in the digital version. So the internet, it's a platform universe. It's not just an email universe, it's a platform. And this, as such, it can become a power hub. And there's ways to make it secure and trustworthy with all of this information in so many places. At BIMobject, we have the largest digital repository of real building products on the planet. We have over 1,100 product brands, 300,000 parametric BIM files, and that actually equates to about 22 million articles that can be utilized in your modeling or in a designer or facility manager's modeling. We've had 21 million downloads and 195 million product visits. The other advantage of an internet platform, we're connecting people in a digital expo. So your storefront on BIMobject, or even your storefront using what we call a product site, which is either a subset or your full offering of products buried into your own site, is open 24/7. It's able to be leveraged, utilized globally. One of the other features we have for that gives you leads, tools, is our BIManalytics Core, it's called. This is because we do require registration for download. The BIManalytics Core is available to you for managing leads, following up with leads, understanding who, what, and how is really leveraging your content, and follow up with them. This is very, very powerful. It also allows you to look at your specific products, the most downloaded ones, and as well as sort and look at it pretty much any way you want. It is everything that Google AdWords is not for you as a building product manufacturer. So we don't try to duplicate other tools and what other analytics engines are able to do. What we're trying to do is give you actionable information for you to get your products purchased and utilized in actual jobs. So it's lead generation and interaction. You're able to see who, what, when, and how, and communicate with a registered user through BIM mail. As well, many sales manufacturers, back to the contact folks, if you're not contacted directly, if you're contacted through BIM mail, many of the sales folks will actually put their email address and phone contact right in there back to their user. So it's a way of communicating directly with those end users, which may or may not be any type of role or actor in the full building life cycle. Another key aspects of our offering are BIMsupply and Hercules. BIMsupply, it's a cloud-based solution where it actually is extending your content into bills of material and orders with the BIM project in utilizing Revit on the Forge platform. And this also puts your reach into virtual design and construction in our Hercules platform. There are many other what we call data, or I call data store platforms, but essentially this is what is being used later on in the life cycle to manage all this information on a collaborative way for all players in the actual facility. This is just a screenshot of BIMsupply showing one of our European vendors and all the pieces and parts for their particular content that are going into this building. And you can, the trick or the key here on this platform, being that it's on Forge, anyone can access this if given rights to it at a project level. These are all project based, and so a construction manager or a virtual design and construction is using your content from the BIMobject product pages in this model, and they're able to do an extraction of counts and pieces and parts, and you see an exploded view. Actually drill in and see where certain fittings are used, how many of each type of fitting they want. So this is another way we continue to enable and extend the value of your initial digital content. So how do we get all that content built? Well, one way is we have a proprietary BIM script language, and it kind of allows us to, and you or whoever, to industrialize how this content is developed. It allows us to create simultaneously numerous outputs out of a single digital model, a single solid model, into Revit, ArchiCAD, SketchUp, IFC formats, 3ds, DWGs, WebGL, which is a very big 3D that anybody can see on the web with a viewer. Here's an example of in the middle of the creation. This is a single fitting, and as you can see on the right, it's a little code-ish, I understand, and but nonetheless, it's very powerful in that it allows this particular object to be specified with all of, what, 8 or 10 different parameters of different sizes, and additionally, it outputs this into 9 separate file types for you to offer to the industry in the way they need it. This is the viewer, in a WebGL environment. So this person is specified they want to download this one. They can actually, this is a 3D that they can look at any way they want and bring that into what they're modeling. Another way that we help leverage and enable your content in this digital connected flow is with the 3D content. Tools like AR and VR, augmented reality, virtual reality, are being demanded actually by the building designers, by so many. And AR is more even in the maintenance side as a facility managers. So your content can be extended into all these environments in this 3-dimensional manner. And so we do have augmented reality and virtual reality offerings that we've developed for a number of you in order to help in your sales process, in your designers, offerings that you want to give, where they're using these tools to not just see what something looks like, but actually experience it. They're able, someone who's using AR as an interior designer, say, doing furniture selection for a conference room, can actually experience it and let the owners experience it before it ever gets purchased. Back to that whole digitalization, digital twin, we're going to build it, we're going to experience it before we actually build it in physical. Not to get too confused or too deep into a lot of these, I mean, some folks confuse many of them, but the virtual reality is truly immersed. You don't see in the outside world. Augmented reality is more for enhancing existing facilities, and mixed reality is kind of a combination of the two, just so you know. But here's an example. So we have a designer that could actually, in this case, we could say it's a homeowner or whoever working with a designer in virtual reality. This is what the designer had, and the homeowner says, I'd like to have more light. Maybe I'd like to have an array of those windows. How can we do that? They could actually change it on the fly And so they're able to experience something that is a what if in virtual. So we're seeing these as huge ways to continue to leverage and sell your products. A couple other recent technologies that BIMobject has created and in the process of offering our BIM script assembly macro, or BAM as we call it. It's a new open file format with the concept there. Instead of many of you maybe have heard, or if you've talked to any architects, engineers, even construction managers about this monstrous file they have to continually download or access or share or whatever. With the BIM script assembly macro, it's going to be, you're going to have threads essentially that we also are looking at utilizing blockchain technology to manage the integrity of these small threads that allow anyone that has the rights to access and view and interact with the actual digital twins and the models. Recently, BIMobject, last fall, I believe, we released our API for our cloud platform. Yet another way that we enable the larger built environment, the building industry, to use your content and consume your content within their own specific platforms or apps, however they want to do it, e-commerce solutions. Anyway, so that is also another capability that we have, is our API is available. We just recently released our BIMobject software development kit. Instead of just an API where it's accessing with a spreadsheet or some other off-the-shelf software, the API would be accessing the digital content that you guys provide. The software development kit allows someone to actually create their own interface, their own user interface, user experience, and it will be open source and free for those that want to do it, which will bring us into 97 today of the 100 largest architecture firms in the world are using the BIMobject cloud. 95 of the 100 largest design and engineering firms in the world are using the BIMobject cloud. This one is especially exciting because I think this is where it really weighs out for you, the building product manufacturer. It's where your products get purchased. And back to my initial question to you, 74 out of the largest 100 construction firms are using the BIMobject cloud. I've seen over the years where the shift in our industry has really happened because the technology tools that were necessary for a large, sophisticated construction manager, general contractor, or virtual design and construction company to be competitive was technology, and they had to do it different than it had been done before. It's the only way they can remain competitive, not comparative, but competitive. So BIMobject is for building products what so many of these other success stories were for their respective products. With BIMsupply, BIM.com is where we will be in the near future providing an app store essentially for anything developed with the software development kit or other apps that integrate and consume the BIMobject platform content. So that's our mission, is connecting all these dots and connecting it together. And for you, the building product manufacturer, how do we connect these things where it continues to derive value for you, the building product manufacturer, out of that initial content that you're hosting on our platform? How do we continue to make sure that remains relevant? There's digital opportunities all along that value chain, and I think I submit to you, I think that we can't even foresee all of them yet. But we got to be diligent. We got to be forward thinking. We got to understand the realities of the day, and the involvement of the suppliers and trades has become ubiquitous with the design process. I mean, one and the same. They're happening through the concept of virtual design and construction. It's happening as a collaborative process, not in silos. So it's about getting the right information to the right person at the right time. That's to say that we look at the BIMobject.com cloud platform as a single source of truth. We try to anticipate, understand, and provide ways to integrate your content into all aspects and future-proof that content into the building lifecycle. Stefan Larsson, our CEO, stated a while back that BIMobject is the construction industry's equivalent to Spotify. It's obviously not about music at BIMobject, but it's about a cloud service. It gives access to all the world's information about building components. We're also a community for all those actors in the industry, and that's part of our goal. As you've seen our user, we call it our user community. At the beginning of the presentation, I pointed out the growth, the explosive growth in the user community. Just in 1 year, over doubling, and it's far more than double. Now we're 3 months into 2018. So since we took and absorbed the Seek library content on January 17th, 2017, we've exponentially seen user growth occur. And again, these are registered users that are provide actionable leads and real situations for real projects. Going to open up a poll. One thing that we have with all this talk of digitalization, and we're an internet and we're platform based, we realize that this is a transition for all of us in the industry. And in that transition, I just launched a poll that we decided that we would create some white books that give you a little deeper dive into beneficial aspects for you in sales and marketing of your products and how we're addressing that. So we'd be happy to send those to you if you just click in the poll that you want those or not. Let us know. Additionally, to follow up, feel free to contact your sales director directly for any of these. Again, this had to be just somewhat of an overview because any one of the 12 or so different aspects of our platform, I could have done a complete webinar on alone. And we will be following these up with BIMobject Talk specifically. If you have requests for those that you want, please put it in the chat and let us know any specific topics you'd like to see covered more deeply. But as well, don't hesitate to reach out to your sales director at any time to pick up any of these others. At this point, we will check to see with our moderators if we have any questions. Again, put them in the chat box and we'll try to address a few. We got a few minutes left here. So thanks for everybody that came on. Appreciate your inquisitiveness. I can't even say that. Tongue-tied there, but looking forward to working with you all in the future if I haven't already, and hope you enjoy it. Any questions, Don, that we had come through?
Steve, no questions at this point, but we can leave it open for a little bit if there are some questions folks want to put in the chat box. We can hang out here for a few minutes.
Yeah, absolutely. And any of the areas are open for, even if it was something I didn't cover here, if there was something that you've experienced that throughout this past year that you don't either feel like you have a good handle on or would like to know more about or not working right, anything, we're happy to address it as well. Steve.Holzer@BIMobject.com. Feel free to reach out to me directly if you want. I can guide the question to an expert in that specific area if there's something that you need to know more about. If there aren't any other questions, we'll sign off for now. Stay tuned. We'll be sending out more of these. We're going to be having a fairly regularly scheduled throughout the year webinars. So again, looking forward to any topics that you have that you would like for us to address. Be happy to do so. hope to see you again soon. Thank you all.